We need to prevent the bad guys from bricking, nicking or tricking our assets, while providing our good guys with access to our assets to use them. For example, we can build strong walls around our assets, and so keep them mostly secure from the bad guys, but this is security as a disabler because it also prevents the good guys from accessing and using the assets. So we open a doorway in the wall so that the good guys could get in and out, but now we can let the bad guys in too. So we want to control who uses the door, and the means that we use is called a security control. So for example, we might just put someone at the door who knows who the good guys are. We might put a door on with a bolt on it if we expect someone to be inside when the assets are inside, or if the assets are the people. Or as we do with most houses, we have a bolt that can be operated with a key. And copies of the key can then be given to any good guy who we think should be able to reach the asset. And we need to be aware of all the access routes to our assets. There's no point in putting a strong front door and a big lock if you leave the back window open and somebody can crawl through that and nick all your stuff. And this is the basis for most security controls. We have some kind of barrier with access routes through it, either that are already there or that we put in, and then we control those paths. We control those access routes. Now in computer systems, cyberspace is naturally disconnected from physical space. We can't naturally peer into the cables, computer chips or hard disks, so we have that natural barrier already there. So to access the systems, we have to provide access between the humans and the devices, screens and keyboards. And between the devices, such as cables and radio communications, mobile phone cell nets, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, that kind of thing. So that means these access routes are the places we want to put security controls. That's why we have fingerprint face scanners and logins before you can use the screens and keyboards and so on. These are our access controls between the physical world and the cyber one. We can also put access controls between devices, such as firewalls, and we can also have monitors. These largely look for bad behaviour of things that have sneaked in past our security controls or have been let in either accidentally or deliberately. But we need to bear in mind that all security comes with costs, whether it's paying for the control itself, or the time spent to operate it, or the lost access when you forget your key or your passcode. So that is, just adding security blindly is not just pointless if it doesn't counter an actual threat, it's a cost. And adding more security doesn't necessarily reduce risk, and adding too much security can cost more than the asset being protected. So to identify the right security, to put in the right places, to protect the right assets, we've looked at the impact of the assets being nicked, picked or tricked, and we've looked at the locations and access routes, and now we have to look at the threats and their capabilities to see what we can change about the routes and the controls we put on them. So for example, if we're looking at access through an open window frame, then pretty much any thief is capable of getting in at the ground floor. So we need to have a security control or security measure like a locked window, bars over the frame, or even just block up the window if it's not useful. But if our open window is on the first floor, then our thief needs a ladder or similar. And if we know that thieves in our area don't tend to carry them around, and there are none locally accessible to the house, then our thief is not capable of getting in that way. And if our open window is on the second floor, then our thief's going to need specialist equipment to reach it. And again, if thieves in our area don't have that, then they don't have the capability of accessing it, and the risk of bad guy access that way is very low. Very, very few thieves have equipment to reach higher windows, so we don't need to apply the security controls to them that we do to the ground floor ones. And similarly, when we're looking at computer networks, we can look at both the physical and hacking capabilities of attackers on that location. So is it worth, for example, the cost of having a login on each of these terminals if you're in a submarine? Do we need to defend against state-sponsored attackers on a plumber's webpage? Now looking at our threat attackers, we need to know three things roughly. Capability, i.e. what have they got, what equipment have they got, what knowledge have they got. Their motivation in general, so how likely are they to be going around doing bad things that might end up in an attack on you, and motivation against you specifically. And then something about what the impact of that attack would be. So that goes with your assessment of your assets. And once we've run through these different types of attacker, and we have compared their capability and likelihood of attacking our different locations, we will have a list of vulnerabilities. And these are the access routes that the attacker is likely to be able to use with their capabilities. And these are the points where we need to consider closing off or adding security controls. We can list the requirements out of these, check their costs, and give them to the experts to put in place. Right, and that, in outline, is that. You can now go around again and check your assets in more detail, your access remote details, whether the good guys have the access they need while the bad guys are being blocked. We need to check our access routes in depth to inside our areas of responsibility, and we can check our monitoring both inside and outside. And we will need to work out how to respond to intruders and how to recover after an asset has been nicked, bricked or tricked, but we can cover that another time. So that's basically how you do your risk assessments in the cyberspace in a way that's suitable for Secure by Design. Hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you've got any feedback. Thanks very much for listening.
Morning. Oh.